In this video lesson, we'll discuss the clash of cultures on the prairie, on the Great Plains region, between the Native American culture and the settlers who are pushing onto their land. Native Americans lived on the Great Plains, which was the grassland region extending through the west central portion of the United States. Tribes would hunt and plant crops and settled in small villages. They would trade with other tribes on the plains for clothing and for tools. The horse and the buffalo were very important to Native American culture. As Native Americans acquired horses and guns, they were able to travel further and hunt more efficiently. By the 1700s, almost all of the farmers left their farms to hunt buffalo. Tribes fought each other when they trespassed on each other's lands. Native Americans made teepees from buffalo hides and also used the skin and fur to make blankets, shoes, and clothes. The family life of the Native American culture was very different from that of the white settlers. Young men trained to become hunters and warriors. Plains Indians believed that powerful spirits controlled events in the natural world, and no individual was allowed to dominate a group. As the settlers begin to push westward, the cultures meet and find that they are very different. The culture of the white settlers differed in many ways from that of the Native Americans on the plains. As white settlers claimed land, they claimed that the Native Americans had forfeited their rights to the land because they hadn't settled down to improve it at all. In 1834, the federal government passed an act that designated the entire Great Plains as one enormous reservation for the Native Americans. A reservation is land set aside for Native American tribes. Then in 1850, the government changed its policy and created treaties that defined specific boundaries for each tribe. This will lead to clashes between Native Americans and settlers, beginning with the massacre at Sand Creek. In 1864, the massacre at Sand Creek was one of the most tragic events on the island or at Sand Creek Reserve in Colorado. The U.S. Army attacked and killed over 150 people, mostly women and children, but all Native American. Red Cloud was a Sioux chief who had unsuccessfully appealed to the government to end white settlement. In December 1866, a warrior named Crazy Horse ambushed Captain William J. Fetterman at Lodge Trail Ridge. Native Americans called this the Battle of the 100 Slain. Whites called this the Fetterman Massacre. Not long after that, the Treaty of Fort Laramie was signed, intending to give the Native Americans a reservation to live on along the Mississippi River. Sitting Bull was the leader of the Sioux and refused to sign the Treaty of Fort Laramie. Sitting Bull is pictured here in this picture. The battles will continue between the U.S. government and the Native Americans. In the Red River War, which happened in 1868, the U.S. government crushed resistance on the southern plains. In 1874, as a result of the gold rush, General Custer said that the Wyoming Black Hills had gold and the gold rush was on. The Wyoming Black Hills was sacred ground to the Sioux, and this will incite a lot of hard feelings and difficulties between the U.S. government and the Native Americans. Custer's last stand happens as a result. And in 1876, as Custer and his men reached the Little Bighorn River, Native Americans attacked them. Led by Crazy Horse, Gall, and Sitting Bull, the warriors crushed Custer's troops within hours. The U.S. government supported a policy called assimilation when it came to the Native American tribes. Assimilation was a plan under which Native Americans would give up their beliefs and way of life to become part of white culture. The Dawes Act in 1877 aimed to Americanize the Native Americans. It broke up the reservations and gave land to individual Native Americans to own. And the government would sell the remainder of the land to white settlers. The problem was that the Native Americans did not consider that they owned the land. The destruction of the buffalo will happen as a result of encroachment of white settlers on the Native American lands. Fur traders shot them for sport. This helped destroy the Plains Indians' main source of food, clothing, shelter, and fuel. In 1800, there were 65 million buffalo roaming the plains, and by 1890, only 1,000 remained. By 1900, there was only one single herd left. The Battle of Wounded Knee Creek will put an end to the Indian Wars. At the Battle of Wounded Knee, in December of 1890, the 7th Cavalry, which was Custer's old regiment, rounded up 350 starving and freezing Sioux and took them to a camp at Wounded Knee in South Dakota. 300 unarmed Native Americans were slaughtered, bringing the Indian Wars to an end. This happened as a result of a ghost dance and a misinterpretation of the ghost dance by the U.S. government. The ghost dance was a Sioux ritual to restore the Native American way of life. When we watch the movie that we're going to watch titled Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, you'll see the ghost dance and the impact that it has on the feelings between the U.S. government and the Sioux. Cattle from this time on will become big business as a result on the Great Plains region. Longhorns, seen here in this picture, are a breed of sturdy longhorn cattle that were brought by the Spanish to Mexico and that were suited for dry conditions of the Southwest. The demand for beef will increase after the Civil War due to the growth of cities. The Chisholm Trail will be the major cattle route from San Antonio, Texas, through Oklahoma to Kansas. And the long drive was the overland transport of the animals that often lasted about 3 months. The animals were taken from Texas and driven up to Oklahoma and Kansas to meet the railroad and then be shipped to different areas of the country for food. In the next video, we'll talk about settling on the Great Plains, the struggles that white settlers went through, and the advent of the railroad and how it affected the settlement of the West.